morning, everybody. It is 1:30 a.m. and this is Food for Thought. Thoughts if it were you. My name is Neo Gentrics, and we're back with the moral series. Yesterday I covered kindness, and I'm going to go ahead and pick up on that. Moving on to the next moral, I covered generosity. By definition, that's the quality of being kind and generous. In other words, it's the quality or fact of being plentiful or large. No, not large like in your rear. That has nothing to do with it. Or even large in your stomach. Well, actually, I take that back. That's being a little too generous. But anyway, in other words, we all have people in our lives that we can identify as generous. And it's not simply because they give away significant amounts of money, though they may, in some people's case. But I'm going to use a Bible reference here. As Mark 12:41 through 44 shows us, those who give away numerically little may actually be those who are the most generous. Okay? In God's economy, amount sacrificed always supersedes the amount given. Okay? In other words, you can give $5, but it doesn't mean that that's all you actually give. Just the act of even giving in the first place is more than the amount of money that you were going to give in the first place. For the generous person, their posture of generosity affects all areas of their life, not just their bank account, though that may be a factor. So, what are some ways we can spot such a person? This is a question a lot of people should ask. And what are some generous identifiers we should consider for our own lives? I'm going to go ahead and give you 6 of them. We're going to take a short break. I'm going to pull up this list that I have written here, and then we're going to cover that. So, the 6 identifiers. First one being they're satisfied. Okay? Except for the amounts that they give away, they always want to give more. They want to be more generous with what they have, but they're not driven by the desire to acquire more possessions. They may have a nice house, or they may have a nice car, but those things don't drive them. They would be just content without them. I'm one of those people. It was just how I was raised. On that note, I'm not saying anything about other people who have these types of things. It just depends on your environment. With that being said, the second thing is they say yes more than they say no. I have to admit this is a bad habit of mine. Generous people have the amazing ability to say yes. They, in a way sense, do they have more money than everyone else? No. Do they have more time than everyone else? No. Do they have more possessions than anybody else? Most definitely not. But they may manage money, time, and possessions in a way that allows them to say yes more often, and they almost always prioritize people over each of those areas more so than anything else. And I can honestly admit to being one of those people. Just because I offer to buy something for someone or I offer to help them doesn't mean that I have the time or the money. It just means that my handling of those is such that I have excess that I can share with you, and I'm doing it because I want to, not because I have to. On that note, let's move on to the third one real quick. They ask, what can I do for you? And they actually mean it. And you can usually tell this from the tone in the person's voice. Generous people do not wait for opportunities of generosity to come to them. They seek out ways in which they can bless others. They know that some of the most needy people will never approach another individual for assistance voluntarily, unless they're extremely desperate. Therefore, the generous person takes the initiative. With that being said, number 4, they don't talk about their possessions. For one, it does sound egotistical and a little naive, because they do not see themselves as owners of those possessions. Okay, they know that any possessions that they hold is basically our Father's in heaven, and it is their challenge to manage it well for God's purpose. Their possessions are just tools to be used for generosity's sake. They truly believe that God didn't design us to be hoarders, but conduits through which His generosity flows. I said before, this is not a Bible station, but it doesn't mean we won't be covering aspects related to such. So, with that being said, number 5, there's a sense of levity about them. Their lack of attachment to possessions develops a lightheartedness in them. They're not burdened down by the drive to get and keep more stuff. Okay, they're not connected or even concerned about the keeping up with the Joneses or the Joneses lifestyle. Okay, they live life open-handed. They experience a freedom that most don't even know exists. And finally, 6, they're energetic. Giving energy energizes them. How do I phrase this? God gave them their resources for His purpose, okay, and they are aligned with it. It is an adventurous place to be. We were designed for generosity's sake. Okay, when individuals align themselves with the design, it becomes oblivious. They are easily identified. Their generosity has infected their entire being. Of course, this leaves us with an obvious question. What identifies us? And this is something I want y'all to think about. Well, thus is the whole point of this station in the first place. It's food for thought. Okay? Now, I've covered the 6 identifiers of a person who's generous. In the next piece here, I'm going to take a short break. We're going to cover the 5 qualities of a generous person. And that will conclude generosity for this podcast. And then we'll be moving on to the next moral in the series. All right. We're going to go ahead and cover what the 5 qualities of a generous person, and we'll finish up this podcast leading strong. So, although there are many different types of generous people, there are some common traits that the most generous people share. Whether they give their time or their money, these qualities are largely shared by the individuals most devoted to giving back to their communities and or families. Although the Latin root of the word means of noble birth, by no means is generosity limited to people in positions of power. While it is typically the high-profile people who are in the news for their generosity, anyone can become more generous simply by paying attention to his actions. And according to Emmanuel Levinas, the French philosopher, a generous person will display these qualities even if they know the people or group he is helping is not going to do the same in return. So even if you know people are going to automatically bite you in the ass, doesn't mean you still don't help them. The first thing is altruism. First and foremost, generous people are altruistic. They give without hopes of receiving compensation for their good deeds. Personal gain may occur, but it's not a motivating factor for the most generous people. Second is optimism. Generous people are idealists. They have a certain image of the way the world should be and strive to achieve that end. Although the world is not a perfect place, these people do not stop giving their time, energy, or money. As optimists, they see the world in a different light than others. They truly believe that the world, although not perfect, can be made into such a much better place. Next, trust. Trust is a major quality amongst the most generous people. They trust completely that their cause is a worthy one. They trust that the people involved with that cause will do their best to help achieve the goal. Quote, end quote. For those who give, this means a trust that the others involved with the cause will be using their time and resources appropriately, or at least so we hope. Next would be energy. When you think of a person being generous, energy is one of the first things that comes to mind. These individuals devote their energy to the good that they want to do. They also gain energy from their cause, figuratively speaking. When the most generous person spends their time working on a goal, they are revitalized and energized to do even more. It's kind of like a monkey see, monkey do kind of mentality, but in a good way. Last but not least, they have the ability to lead. This quality may seem like an odd one at first, but the most generous people are not afraid to stand up and lead for their cause. Although not everyone can actually lead their group or cause, this does not discount these individuals' leadership capabilities. Getting involved is in itself a form of leadership. Okay? The most generous people share these qualities to differing degrees. If you're concerned with increasing your own level of generosity, these factors will get you started in the right direction. And with that, I end my podcast today on generosity. It's not a very long topic to cover, and most of it is pretty self-explanatory and understood, if not mostly common sense. But for those who have no idea how to get started, or even not sure if they even have it, this is a great way to get going. This completes generosity for my Food for Thought podcast, Thoughts If It Were You. We'll be moving on to the next moral in our next episode, and it'll be one of the two. I haven't quite decided yet. It'll either be fairness or courage. We'll see when the next episode comes. Thank you for listening. And like I said before, if you have any ideas, thoughts, or concerns, feel free to send me a message and we'll take it from there. Enjoy the rest of your day. God bless.